Now that we've learned how to solve systems of equations, we're going to change the way that we do word problems slightly. In the word problems we're going to be looking at from here on out, we're going to have two unknowns, and instead of letting one of them be x and writing the other one in terms of x, we're going to just let the two unknowns be x and y. Now we're going to have two variables, so we're going to need two equations to solve the problem. So in each of these, we're going to need to write two equations that model the situation. Let's start off. In 2005, two of the top-selling cereals in the United States were Cheerios and Frosted Flakes, with combined sales of $939 million. Frosted Flakes sales were $439 million less than sales of Cheerios. What were the 2005 sales for each brand? They're asking us to find the sales for each brand, the brands being Cheerios and Frosted Flakes. So let's set those equal to x and y. Let's let the sales of Cheerios be x, and let's let the sales of Frosted Flakes be y. In these problems, it doesn't matter which is x and which is y. You should be able to set up equations and solve either way. So we've got the sales of Cheerios is x, and the sales of Frosted Flakes is going to be y. Now, we need two equations that model the situation because we have two variables. Let's look at the first sentence. In 2005, two of the top-selling cereals in the U.S. were Cheerios and Frosted Flakes, with combined sales of $939 million. So we know the total sales of those two types of cereal were $939 million. Well, the total we get by adding them together. So we know that if we take x plus y, if we take the sales of Cheerios plus the sales of Frosted Flakes, the combined sales is going to be $939 million. And instead of writing out a bunch of zeros, I'm going to do all of this in millions. So we're going to forget the millions in the beginning, and then in the end, whatever x and y are, we will make them in millions. So the total sales, the combined sales, was $939 million. So x plus y equals 939. Let's look at the other sentence. Frosted Flakes sales were $439 million less than the sales of Cheerios. So Frosted Flakes was $439 million less than Cheerios. Well, Frosted Flakes sales are represented by y. So we know Frosted Flakes sales were, so I'm going to say y equals $439 million less than the sales of Cheerios. Well, the sales of Cheerios was x, and $439 million less than that will be x minus 439. So we have our system of equations. X plus y equals 939, and y equals x minus 439. And if we solve this system of equations, we'll know the values of x and y, which will tell us the sales of each type of cereal. Now, to solve this system of equations, we can use either substitution or elimination. Either method should work in any of these situations, but in general, substitution usually ends up being a little bit easier. And especially in this case, because in this case, we already have one variable that's isolated. If we look at the second equation, we have y is equal to x minus 439. So in the other equation, wherever we see a y, we can replace it with x minus 439. Let's make that substitution. That first equation becomes x plus, and instead of y, we write x minus 439, and that equals 939. We can combine like terms on the left-hand side. X plus x is 2x, so 2x minus 439 equals 939. If we want to isolate the variable term, we need to get rid of that 439, which we can do by adding 439 to both sides. This leaves us with 2x on the left-hand side, and 939 plus 439 ends up being 1378. To get x alone, we have to divide both sides by 2. And when we do that, we're left with x equals 689. So we have x equals 689. If we go back to our let statements, x represented the sales of Cheerios, so that's 689. The sales of Frosted Flakes was equal to y, and we don't know y yet, so we have to continue and figure out the value of y. But we can look at the second equation. We saw that y was equal to x minus 439. I'm just going to rewrite that so that we can work with it. But we figured out the value of x, so we can plug in 689 for x, and then do the math and figure out the value of y. And 689 minus 439 is 250. So y is 250. And remember that these are measured in millions of dollars. So when they ask us what were the 2005 sales for each brand, we can say the sales of Cheerios were $689 million, and the sales of Frosted Flakes were a measly $250 million. And that ends up being our final answer.